When you think of Eminem and Michael Jackson, the last thing you'd expect is a feud between them. Two icons from completely different worlds. One, the king of pop, known for his charm, elegance, and almost childlike energy. The other, a rap legend famous for his sharp tongue and unapologetic punchlines. But in the early 2000s, their worlds collided, and what followed became one of the strangest celebrity rivalries in music history. It wasn't about money or awards. It started with mockery, and ended in business moves that nobody saw coming. Their story begins in 2003, when Eminem was in Glasgow for a show. He was at his hotel window, surrounded by flashing cameras and screaming fans. Out of nowhere, he picked up a baby doll and dangled it over the crowd, laughing as paparazzi captured the moment. To most people, it just looked like one of M's random stunts. But to those paying attention, it was a clear reference to something that had happened just months earlier, when Michael Jackson, in Berlin for an awards ceremony, had briefly held his baby son over a balcony to wave at his fans. The media tore Michael apart for that. Critics called it reckless. Michael later apologized, saying he'd simply gotten caught up in the excitement of the crowd and never meant any harm. But the damage was done, and Eminem saw an opening for satire. That one stunt, mocking Michael's parenting moment, was the spark that lit the fuse. And soon, the feud between two of the most famous men on earth was about to explode. When Just Lose It dropped in 2004, it wasn't just another Eminem song, it was a cultural shockwave. The music video was bold, outrageous, and instantly controversial. Eminem dressed up as Michael Jackson, poking fun at his appearance and mocking some of his most private moments. But the real sting came from the lyrics. Early in the song, M says,
"Alright, stop. Pajama time. Come here, little kitties, on my lap."
At first, it sounds like a harmless joke, but it's actually a direct reference to Michael's 2003 documentary, Living with Michael Jackson, where he spoke openly about allowing children to spend time in his home, something that the media twisted into endless tabloid stories. Eminem didn't stop there. Throughout the track, he continued to drop coded jabs, lines that played on the rumors surrounding Michael at the time. It was bold, even for Eminem, and it crossed a line for many. Michael was dealing with one of the toughest chapters of his life, and hearing those jokes from another global superstar cut deep. When Michael found out about the video, he was devastated. He tried to get it pulled from rotation, but it stayed on air. Eventually, he spoke out. In an interview, his voice was calm.
I've never met Mr. Eminem, and to have him, I've always admired him, and to have him do something like that was pretty painful as an artist to another artist. And it's sad. He should be ashamed of himself, what he's doing. Stevie said he's bullshit, is what he said.
Stevie did,
He
and
used the word.
he is bullshit.
That's what he said. I mean, I'm not saying it, but Stevie said it. And Stevie he's amazing. He's one of the sweetest men in the world.
Michael rarely called anyone out publicly, so his words said a lot. He wasn't just angry, he was disappointed. But instead of firing back, Eminem seemed almost flattered. When asked about it, he said,
"Yeah, that wasn't intentional, but I'm just happy that Michael Jackson has heard of me, you know? So
I was thinking that too. Like, that's the kind of cool side of it.
The fact that he's heard of me is, you know, that does me enough."
It was a strange response, part sarcasm, part self-defense, and it left the public divided. Some thought Eminem had gone too far. Others said it was just a satire. After that, things went quiet. The feud seemed to cool down. No more direct shots, no more interviews. Until, years later, Michael made a move so unexpected, it felt like the perfect silent revenge. In 2007, through his Sony/ATV partnership, Michael made a massive business acquisition, a $370 million deal that included Viacom's famous music catalog. On that list, Eminem's older songs, The Real Slim Shady, Without Me, and more. In one move, Michael went from being the punchline in Eminem's video to owning the rights to some of his biggest hits. Fans joked that the King of Pop had quietly bought his revenge. It wasn't personal, at least not officially, but symbolically, it said everything. Michael Jackson didn't need to clap back. He could just buy the soundtrack of his rival's success. Even if Michael's move to buy the catalog wasn't meant as direct payback, it still felt poetic. After all, the same artist who mocked him in a song now had some of his biggest hits sitting under Michael's business umbrella. No angry tweets, no interviews, no diss tracks, just quiet ownership. But what made this even more fascinating is that it wasn't the first time Michael had pulled off something like this. Because years before Eminem ever picked up a mic, Michael had done the very same thing to another global legend, someone he actually started out as friends with, Paul McCartney of the Beatles. Back in the 1970s, Michael and Paul were close. They recorded together, spent time with each other's families, and even shared creative ideas. Songs like Say, Say, Say and The Girl Is Mine became instant classics. But one evening over dinner in London, the conversation turned from music to money. And that's when things got interesting. Paul, a seasoned veteran in the industry, started explaining how music ownership worked. He told Michael that real wealth in the music business doesn't come from concerts or record sales. It comes from owning the songs. To prove it, Paul pulled out a notebook, neatly listing every track he owned the publishing rights to. It was his personal map of musical power. Michael listened closely, taking it all in. Then, with a playful smile, he told Paul something that sounded like a joke at the time. "One day, I'm going to buy your songs." Paul laughed it off, but Michael wasn't joking. A few years later, he did exactly that. In 1985, Michael purchased the massive ATV catalog, a deal worth nearly $47.5 million, giving him control of thousands of songs, including over 250 Beatles tracks. It was one of the boldest and smartest business moves in music history. And it all started from that casual dinner conversation. What's ironic is that Paul had once warned Michael about selling your music rights. He'd learned the hard way back in the 60s when a complicated tax situation in Britain forced him and the Beatles to give up ownership of their songs. But decades later, the very same kid he mentored, the one who called him a friend, ended up buying those rights instead. And just like that, Michael Jackson became not just the king of pop, but also one of the most powerful music investors in the world. To him, it wasn't about revenge or betrayal, it was business. Cold, brilliant, and strategic. To buy his music back? By the mid-1980s, Michael's business instincts were on another level. When his team told him about a massive deal, the ATV music catalog going up for sale, Michael didn't hesitate. He'd learned from Paul that real power in the music world came from ownership. So when the opportunity appeared, he made his move. The deal wasn't just about copyrights. The package came with studios, equipment, even life insurance policies for major artists, one of them being Paul himself. Paul had made small offers before, but nothing close to what ATV wanted. So, in 1985, Michael Jackson bought the entire catalog for $47.5 million. Thousands of songs, including 251 Beatles classics. When Paul found out, he was stunned. He later said, "It's a bit dodgy, you know? To be someone's friend and then buy the rug they're standing on." Michael tried calling him, but Paul didn't pick up. The friendship that once produced beautiful music slowly turned into a cold silence. Michael went on to use some of those Beatles songs in commercials and other projects, saying it would only make the music bigger, that more people would hear it and love it. But to Paul, it wasn't about fame or exposure, it was about respect. He felt betrayed that the kid he once mentored had turned their dinner table conversation into a billion-dollar business lesson. Still, from Michael's point of view, it wasn't personal. It was business. Plain and simple. He believed Paul had plenty of chances to buy the catalog himself, but passed on them. So, when the opportunity came, Michael took it. And as cold as that sounds, it became one of the greatest investments in music history. Years later, Paul reflected on their strained friendship, saying, "We haven't talked in years. I wrote those songs for nothing, and now I can't even afford to buy them back." To which Michael reportedly replied, "Oh, Paul, that's just business." That line summed up everything about Michael Jackson's mind. Behind the moonwalks and soft-spoken interviews was a man who understood the game, not just as an artist, but as a strategist. So when Eminem mocked him in Just Lose It, Michael didn't fight back with words or diss tracks. He fought back the way he knew best, through ownership. He didn't argue. He didn't retaliate. He simply bought the catalog that held Eminem's biggest songs. From Paul McCartney to Slim Shady, Michael Jackson proved one thing. The real power in music doesn't come from fame. It comes from control. And in the end, the king of pop didn't just win the charts, he mastered the business behind them.